This is like being in a movie theater. When the movie is yet to begin, we see all the different things are gone. There is only one screen. The movie begins. That is, when we open the eyes, this movie begins. Things are moving, things are different, events are happening, and yet it is on that background which does not change, which is real. Everything else is that very screen seen as the different things and different events. It is the unchanging screen that is seen as this variety. So let us be aware of the screen. Like while watching the movie, we are aware of the screen. And therefore, even if we see a big fire on the screen, we don't take out our cell phone and dial 911 because we are aware that it is just the screen. That event is not real. It is similarly, let us be aware of the unchanging screen on which this movie is happening. And then we will be able to come in a position where we can feel the teachership of death, the unique teachership of death. And one important thing we can say about this is death is familiar to us all. Everybody knows what death is. Today is the death anniversary of somebody. When we hear, we don't feel that the statement is unintelligible. We fully understand what is meant by that. Somebody died. When we hear this, we do not feel confused. We know well what has happened. And we know basically the meaning of this word death. Even if we do not ponder deeply about it, yet right from the childhood, we become aware of death. Death is actually change. Although we do not normally associate all changes with death, but if we penetratively look, every change is an expression of death. What is the meaning of change? What was there is not anymore there, it is different. That is what is called change. Means our earlier perception has died and new perception has come up. So every change is really in a subtle sense death. When this change comes to a state where we find almost no connection with the new state, then we actually call it death. But actually, really speaking, every change is death. Therefore, if change is not there, death is not there. In Bhagavad Gita, in the 2nd chapter, you see Lord Krishna explaining to Arjuna that you are being perturbed because of the death, but look, the death is the common thing, that every change is really death. He explains that look, that in this life itself you undergo several changes, birth, childhood, adulthood, old age, So, are you getting perturbed when these changes happen? No, it is in fact, if they don't happen, you will feel strange. If the child looks the same after 10 years, it is a big problem. Something wrong is there. So the changes are expected, normal. If so this change from old age, the next link in that change is what you call death. So it is expected. Everybody expects it. Death is an expected event. Imagine if death doesn't happen in the world. No, nothing dies. Imagine, it will not be a pleasant state to live in because nothing changes. It will be so boring. You can imagine, the same thing happening all the time, nothing happening because changes lead to what is our perception as death. So, the death is known to everyone, and yet a strange, astonishing fact is noticed. Again, it is very explicitly told in the great epic Mahabharata that although we see the death all around us, the strange thing is one's own death is beyond imagination. Somehow we feel that everybody else is dying, I am not going to die. That is very internal feeling. And not only amongst the Hindus or amongst those who have read the scriptures. I was talking to a Jewish rabbi at our interfaith meeting at Brown Chaplain's office one day over some death. And then he told to me that it is so difficult to feel subjectively one's own death, almost impossible. Psychologically also it is almost impossible to feel one's really non-existence of somebody. Somebody else doesn't exist, I don't care. I don't exist is very difficult to feel, because for feeling that also I have to have I, you see. Do you see the problem, the dilemma associated with it? To feel my death, I have to be there to feel my death. That is why it is so difficult to feel one's own death. And that is expressed in Mahabharata in the reply to a question, that this is the most astonishing, amazing fact in this world, that although everybody dies, I have the feeling that I am not going to die. And this is where we do not really subjectively meet the great teacher death. Because everybody else I can see meeting death, I don't see myself meeting death. And thus I miss learning from this great teacher directly. I learn indirectly, but miss learning directly by coming face to face with my own death. Let us come, to the question that what is the meaning of learning and what is teaching? And we want to see how death is the great teacher. So let us ponder a little bit over what is the meaning of learning. Learning is actually living. And so in living, we keep on learning too. Except that all learning does not get classified as really learning, because it is not conducive to our betterment, our evolution, our going in what we understand as the right direction. There is an automatic process of learning where we learn things from the nature as it is. And without any efforts, this learning happens. And this learning is not always good learning. It is, in fact, one has to try to prevent that kind of learning. One learns bad things very quickly. That which is not conducive to our betterment, unconsciously we learn those things. Therefore, the big task for the school-going children's parents is to see that they don't learn bad things at the school. Wrong things at the school should not be learned. Because that happens, that nobody is actually teaching those things. Not that like a school, there is a math class, there is a history class, and come on, let us now learn all the expletives. There is no separate class held for that. But students, the children, they pick it up somehow. So it is, one has to keep a watch on that this learning doesn't happen. This happens just because like the gravity, things go down automatically. You don't need to give a push to them. It happens. So going down happens kind of automatically. When somebody is to go up, then that is a different kind of learning. It requires a force. It requires effort in the right direction. That is the real learning, that we go from a stage to a next stage where we are seeing things in a more comprehensive way and also seeing things in a way that is more beneficial to us, that makes us according to our understanding of what is good. So it is that is the learning that we are talking about here. That is the real learning. It is to give an analogy from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, that it tells the bad tendencies and good tendencies. The bad tendencies are called demons, and the good tendencies angels. The Deva and Asura. Asura means the bad tendencies, and good tendencies, Devas. So both emanate or come from God. And both are coming from the same source. But it is told there, the bad tendencies, the asuras, they are the elder ones. Both are siblings, but these are the elder siblings. The bad tendencies, they come because the commentary given is that they come up just naturally. There is no cultivation necessary for that. Like the weeds in the garden, you don't plant them, they come automatically, So it is like that, these tendencies come automatically, so they are elder brothers or elder siblings. And the good tendencies, they need to be cultivated, so they come later, as it were. So this learning of an evolutionary process that has to happen against the gravity. And so it is something that where our liking needs to be overcome. And it is hard, and therefore a good teacher is a motivator to do that, somebody who pushes us to do that, and also at times removes the obstacles in that path. So these are the jobs of a good teacher. It is good teacher is available. The good teacher is not somebody who is just sitting somewhere on Mars and he is the best but not available, so what is the use of such a teacher? So should be available, affordable. If the fee is too high, then well, maybe good for a billionaire, not for everybody. So must be available and affordable, and also a very effective teacher. And should be able to teach not things just as information in the brain. And many times it is thought that if I read a book and if I store that information in my head, I have learned it. No. That is just information is in the book, that's all. The book is now put in the hard disk here, but still it is not functional, then it is not learning. It has to percolate in the nervous system and should alter your behavior according to that learning. That is the real learning. So the teacher must be able to impart that kind of learning. So this is, if we see all these different criteria, we see how death is a wonderful teacher. Should be also another thing that the good teacher should be doing is see that there is a very different, a wide variety of students. And every student will have to be given education according to that student's level, aptitude and so forth. Everybody cannot be given the same one education. Everybody is at a different level. Everybody has different tools. And so one way of teaching for say person A is not right for another student, say person B, with different tendencies, a different level of attainments, different aptitudes. So therefore, the teacher, a great teacher, should have the ability to change the technique of teaching according to the student that is available. So, and also we see that the teacher must give the problem solving, to the students. Once you impart the instructions, there should be the practicals. Means, see, if you can, according to that exam, that what I taught you, can you solve this practical problem with that? Then it is a good training. One of the books that I used to study in mathematics, the book was not very tough as such. It is, lucid book, very nicely explained things. But the real worth of that book was in the problems given at the end. And those problems were really very challenging problems. And although they appeared to be very tough, they were tough, but they were so skillfully put there that you need to exercise your learning to solve them at great depths. So that is the teacher should not just give information but also has to provide They practical problems to solve, to be solved with the learning, to test how much learning has been absorbed. Also, the teacher must test the eligibility of student to get the learning. We see that first thing, availability of death as teacher. It is available everywhere, and we see death everywhere, and we do not even need to make an appointment. We don't need to make a phone call. What time I should come to you? Well, it is all present all the time. And so, availability is great. Affordability, well, you don't really need to even pay the teacher. It is free, free education. And now in election times, everybody is promising, free education and so forth. But this teacher has been doing it all the time. You don't need to pay a price as such to get this teacher. It is there all the time and without any price. Then this teacher should be able to use different tools. Not just the tool of throwing words, not giving lectures, but just the presence of the teacher also should be able to teach. The very presence should emanate instructions. It is presence speaks, friends, not that the presence does not teach. The presence speaks, presence instructs. I give that familiar example. When do you see on the highway on a nice day, all the cars suddenly are driving within the speed limit and in the right lane and so forth? That means there is the presence of, So it is, that presence is not doing anything particularly, just being there. That being there is giving a lesson, giving a training. So that being is in a way speaking. So that teacher should also have that skill to teach by just being. Not speaking is not the only tool. The teacher could speak, yes. Use the best possible words, yes. But even the presence should be good to impart certain necessary truths. Also, the good teacher many times can teach without student feeling that he is learning, he or she is learning. Because there is a resistance, there is, and so, no, I don't want to learn. Enough, it is too much, it is too tough, too boring also, no. There is the story in the beginning of one of such children's moral and in a way professional training in Sanskrit called Panchatantra, 5 techniques. So very famous book, Panchatantra, 5 technique book. So it is the beginning of it is like this, that there were 2 little kids of a king, and they abhorred any kind of learning. Nobody could teach them. The king appointed many different teachers, but the students just avoided learning. The teacher started, telling, okay, let us play, and then, come on, see, let us bring pluck the mangoes from the tree, and okay, so you got some. You got, how many are together? And the elder brother said to the younger, hey, he is trying to teach, come on, take 2 heels. So it is, the teaching could not be done. So, but one teacher then started just telling stories. Uh, did not, and through those stories, gradually the students learned a lot. When we used to learn Sanskrit in our training center, we had a wonderful teacher. And the classes used to go on every morning. There used to be one Sanskrit language class. And the teacher used to come 5 minutes late. 5 minutes then he would spend in doing prayers, leave the class 5 minutes early, and also would tell many stories and such things and jokes. So we thought we are wasting time, it seems, we are not learning anything. But even through the process was going on, and by the end of the year we saw that we learned a lot actually. Because that was a technique that he had to impart the education. So he used to call it, this is my TC method. TC means short for training center. So this is my TC method, training center method. So this is means the student, that resistance for learning that we all have, that resistance has to be made lie dormant. Otherwise, it will interfere with the teaching process. So it is, it happens a lot. In once one devotee, long time back, told me that he did attend almost all lectures by Swami Sarvagatanandaji, my predecessor here, and they were good, no doubt. But most of the learning that I got from him was sitting with him around the tea table and listen to many things that he would keep on telling, and we would ask at that time different questions and all that. So that was because we were not kind of defensive then. He also was not in, okay, now let me give a 45 or 50-minute long lecture, nothing like that. So the training would go on informally and very effectively too. So this, and also the teacher should bring pain to student. Pain is a tool of teaching. These days, these modern pedagogy teaches that doesn't consider pain as a tool. But if you see that pain is a wonderful teacher. Imagine, I have not seen any child learning to walk without falling. It is, the child has to fall. Why? Because that sends the signal to the brain how the foot has to be placed. Pain tells you that what you did was not right. Pleasure does not teach us anything, friends. And so pain is the great teacher. If we if we do not look upon pain as a lesson, that is actually called lesson also. One lady had called me some time back and then started telling about her husband. Oh, is it so? She said, I am going to teach him a lesson of his life. She got so mad at him. I am going to teach him the lesson of his life. It means it is not that lesson means, come on, let us read a book. No, it is inflicting some pain so that he would behave better next time or whatever. So it is, pain is a great teacher. It is not, we have to see that the pain is used as a tool to teach. Inflicting pain is not the idea there, but pain is a tool. give pain, and then the person understands that this was not right. Whatever, because nobody likes pain. Yeah, obvious, is it not? Anybody here who says, "Oh, I love pain so much"? No. We don't like pain. And therefore, whatever brings pain, I tend to avoid it. So, when a connection is established that this was the cause because of which I got the pain, and if the cause comes again, oh my goodness, again I will get pain. No, let me avoid that. Let me avoid that. A child allergic to, say, peanuts knows if by mistake some peanut thing goes inside, what a terrible pain. And so makes sure that whatever is being eaten contains no peanuts. Although child may may get tempted, but sees that, oh, the pain is going to follow if peanut goes in my system. So makes sure, inquires, himself or herself, are there peanuts in it? Is it made in a same facility where peanuts also are processed? The child becomes very vocal there, because pain in a way therefore teaches the child to be conversant with these things, and bring these things up before eating anything. So pain has to be given to the students on principle as a tool. It is not that the teacher has to become angry and then, no. But anger can be shown without getting angry. The beating can be given without actually killing the person, but it is training, it is learning. So, this is how we see the death as a great teacher. And one can understand that how death, when we think of death, even the presence of death makes us introspective, calm, peaceful. It is therefore in Hindus it is said that go and meditate in a cremation ground. That is because there you feel actually that everything is evanescent. Death is felt there, and therefore one sees the futility of all these material things because they are all going to be over soon. They are all impermanent. That feeling is important. Knowing intellectually that the things are impermanent is very little help, if any. Because when we know something to be impermanent, we do not get caught in it, we do not get attached to it. If we really know something is impermanent, that's it. We will not, even if we want, we will not be able to get attached to it. So, why do we get attached in this world, get caught in it, and then keep on lamenting that I am bound by these things? Because we are not seeing the things right. Let us see that they are impermanent. They are all in the process of dying. They are not real, therefore. And automatically we will not get attached to anything when we know that they are impermanent. I give that example many times, that if you sit in your seat in the aeroplane, you are not attached to it because you know that it is with you only for an hour or for a few hours, like that. So you are in fact eager to leave it. When the plane is landing, come on, over journey finally. Oh, bye-bye. Yes, we'll meet again. What's your email address and all that we'll take. But that's about it. We are not attached to that seat at all. Here we intellectually understand that they are impermanent, but we do not actually understand that they are impermanent. So, when we think of death, when we feel the presence of death, then we start seeing the impermanence of it. And then we won't get caught in this world, and thus we will be free. If we are not caught and bound, what does it mean? What does it mean, Paul? I am free, obvious, is it not? If I am not caught in anything, if I am not bound by anything, that means I am free. So, when we see the things, everything, persons and things as impermanent, then I don't get caught in it and I am free. Very simple, to get freedom is not a difficult process. To get liberation is so simple. Just to see that things are impermanent, they are fraught with death. Presence of death teaches, friends. Without talking, it talks very loudly. So, it is also, there is the training that happens by death. Everything goes in the mouth of death, as it were. Everything is subject to death. As Swami Vivekananda, in very strong words, says, and I am quoting, death is the goal of everything. Death is the goal of life, of beauty, of power, of wealth, of virtue too. Saints die and sinners die. Kings die and beggars die. They are all going to death, and yet this tremendous clinging to life exists. It is in the book Jnana Yoga, where he is showing the contradiction, that we try to cling to life, although everybody is sure to die. So, this fact of death is conceived as a great teacher, because everything, since it goes to death, death must be all-knower. All knowledge is there with death. And in one of the very well-known Upanishads, in fact, Swami Vivekananda used to call it as the most important Upanishads. And this Upanishad is written in a very modern language with modern ways of presentation. So it is called Kathopanishad. It is in what is called Krishna Yajurveda. I don't want to go into the details, but there the teacher is death, a personification of this phenomena, death. And the student, he has gone to death. Why did he go? We will not look into that right now, just because we don't have time. It's a very fascinating story, and the student is there at the door of death. The death hasn't yet started talking to the student, but the student is just waiting there. And that waiting is also imparting a learning. The process is going on, that, now what the death is going to do with me, how shall I tell my story to the death, and all that. Then after 3 days, it is said that the death meets the little boy and then gives him 3 boons. Each boon, if you see, is an evolutionary process. That first, by the first boon, the boy asks that, let everything on the earthly plane for him be all right. Let his father who sent him to death, when he goes back, recognize him. Means in a subtle way he has asked that he will go back. Mm. Because it is only a one-way passage, Somebody goes to death means doesn't come back. So he, in a subtle way, you have to ask in a subtle way, as Sri Ramakrishna gave an analogy, that somebody was given one boon. And so that person asks, look, make such things, give me just one boon. Let me be able to eat with my grandchild in a golden plate, in a plate of gold. So see how many things he asked. Firstly, to have grandchild means you have to survive till then, so long life has been asked. A son or daughter is asked for, and then their child, so he asked so many things in that. And a gold, plate of gold means the person has to be rich to afford a plate of gold. So asked so many things. So first boon was spent for that. Second boon was about what best one can do in this world of subject-object. That how much we can get in this. And then all that information was given to this boy by the death. And then the real question comes, the third question or the third boon, that something remains, although we see things go away, something still remains. What remains that you don't consume? Everything goes into you, but there is something that you cannot consume, that remains unconsumed, that remains eternal, that does not get affected by you. Your power doesn't work on that, and I want to know about it. And the death first hesitates to tell these things, because he was testing that how eager this student is to know that. So he gave him many attractions, showed him many things that to tempt him, that you give up this boon and instead take these things. But this boy said, well, these what you are telling, they are all things which are subject to death. I don't want anything of it. Those which are changing things, there is no real happiness in that. I want none of that. Also, this boy says that you say that it is difficult to learn, and therefore I have come to you, I am asking this from you, because a teacher like you, where can I get teacher like you? Exactly, friends. There is no teacher like death. The best teacher is death. So, he expressly says that, and therefore I want this knowledge from you. All other things I don't care that you were trying to tempt me with. I don't care for any of them. Keep them with you. I don't care if you are ready to tell me this. And this is, kind of inflicting pain. That no, don't ask me this. No, I don't want you to give this to you. No, take something else. And so this is kind of bringing pain. In the first pain, keeping that boy waiting without food, water, anything for 3 days. And then this pain. The boy is asking something. But, well, why don't you take this instead? No. That is, again, a kind of pain being given. Because Nachiketa is feeling at this point. Maybe he will not give it to me, but I will not take anything else. That is what death wanted to test him for that. That is he going to give up this aspiration for something else? No, then he is ready to be given. Then praise and encouragement. And the teacher should praise and encourage too. And not only pain, praise and encourage when there is a right thing done. And the right thing done is to be praised. So here this boy, Nachiketa, gets lot of praise from this death, that wow, what a student you are. There is hardly anybody who could resist all these temptations and be firm on what you want. And may, by the wish of the Lord, may we get students like you. May we get a lot of students who are like you, and then gives this teaching of that which is not subject to death. And that is the goal, to know from death what is not subject to death. What is like you put something in the fire, something gets burned, and then something remains that doesn't get burned. What is that? So you know by putting it into fire that there is something that doesn't get burned. So everything is going into this fire of death. Something doesn't get consumed, something that remains unchanged. Friends, that is the subject of meditation. That cannot be told what does not get changed. In each of us, there is that screen on which this movie is going on. That remains intact. That does not get changed. And to be able to hold on to that, that is this ultimate teaching that the death gives to us. So let us start pondering on that and get that education from this great teacher, greatest teacher, the death. Any questions? Yes, Charlie?
You said that bad tendencies are natural, whereas good tendencies you have to work for. Is that similar to the idea that when people say we're sinners?
Sinners.
Is that similar to that idea?
Oh yes, in a way, you know that in the original way of using this word in the Bible, the idea of sin is just like that. It is later on got transformed to condemn somebody. But it is, the idea is just, we are all born sinners. What does it mean? It is not that we are all bad, but it is a natural occurrence. It was that we came with all the natural tendencies. That is what is the meaning. That we are born of sin. Sin got because of the inquisitions and all that, burning of the witches and so forth, and got this other connotation that is presently there. And therefore, in fact, there is, if you study the Bible, there is hardly any word in New Testament that tells about this sin per se. It is, there is, the sin only used to mean so much, and that it is the natural tendency that we need to overcome. Yeah. Yes, Shravani?
When you talk about pain, is it related to some stages or other stages to it? Because pain reminds me of an impulse response, which even animals,
Yes.
animals are also faced. That is an impulse.
Yeah, exactly. That is a very good observation. The animals also are trained by that. that if they do the right exercise in the right way, they get a treat. If not, they get a pain. So that is how they learn. And human beings too learn like that, but the pain is inflicted at different stages differently. What one will feel as pain depends on where a person lives. If the person's whole life is only in the physicality, then that person needs to be given physical pain, because the mental pain, that person will not get it. But another person who is living more in mind, then that person, if scolded, you fool, that will feel that pain. Oh, why you said like this to me? That pain in the mind becomes more there. So at different stages, different kinds of pain, it is like you use screwdrivers for different types of screwdrivers for different screws. So different levels of pains need to be used at different for different students. It is not same. Yes, Amrita.
Resistance to learning. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? How is that broken down? By the pain that's inflicted, mental pain that's inflicted? Or
There are 3-4 things that are done for that. Firstly, there is a mental pain if you go down, if you don't go up, if you don't learn, there may be this pain for you, remember. Also, if you learn, the motivation is given that you will get all these things. So, both these things are done. Also, without these two, there is another technique also that is used, that the teacher starts walking, telling nice things to the student. And because the teacher is walking ahead, the student also feels like going along, That is also a wonderful technique. That normally it is hard work to climb up. But this person is saying such nice things. So let me walk with him a little ahead. It is that is how that is another way of making that breaking down the resistance or overcoming the resistance to learning.
kind of like the two birds on the same.
Yeah, that analogy in Mundak Upanishad is exactly like that. That the two birds, the bird sitting on the top becomes the motivator, the teacher, because of the serene presence. And this other bird is drifting along the branches, eating bitter fruits, sweet fruits, bitter fruits. Means every fruit is initially sweet, afterwards becomes bitter, like our experiences, and that we go for them not for their bitterness but for their sweetness. But then when we swallow it, soon there is a bitter taste that fills the mouth. So it's like that. And then every time that bitter taste comes, pain, that makes that lower bird look up at the upper bird. Oh, see, look, that bird is serene, free from any kind of this turbulence, pain, nothing is there. Let me go up there, let me not again get entangled in eating these fruits. So that is the process, yeah, correct.